Professor Kevin used to say this, that you can airdrop a Tetr student to any part of the world, they'll know what to do.
What's the biggest mistake applicants make?
The biggest mistake is, I think,
how important is it to speak English fluently?
Are we going to get a degree? From where are we going to get a degree? Do we actually give exams?
That is definitely worth it though.
I think the one thing that stands out.
Like that's the most fun part, and like it really builds you this kind of individualism.
Okay, I can't answer that question. A lot of people are like, it's a scam.
Oh, dang it. Okay, can we just start from there, right?
Hi everyone, welcome back. In the last episode, we had Tarun and Pratham join us and answer some frequently asked questions about Tetr admissions. In today's episode of Inside Tetr, Admissions and Beyond, we're flipping things a little. Today I have with me 4 students from our first batch at Tetr who are joining me for this conversation.
Hola, I'm Juan from Argentina.
Hello, I'm Lily from Germany.
Hi, I'm Radhika. I'm from India.
안녕하세요. I'm Song. I'm from South Korea. So today we have put together 10 questions that I'm sure you guys are very curious about. For example, is my grade more important than my extracurricular activities?
What will make or break my interview?
And then Malvika, on the other hand, will ask us 10 questions as well on how it felt on our side during the application process. For example, what was the most intimidating part, or what was the biggest myth we thought would be true in Tetr?
And we are also going to give you students' perspective on how to crack the Tetr application process so you can get to be our juniors.
So it's 10 from me and 10 from them. This is going to get interesting. Let's get started. You guys want to go first?
Sure.
Okay, I'm sure as a student, I would love to stand out, right? So what's the one thing that makes the applications stand out?
Okay. So the application process at Tetr is, of course, in 3 parts. There is the application, which is the essay, and then there's the Tetr trial, and then followed by the interview stage. I think the one thing that stands out through the entire thing is authenticity. So if the student is able to convey their special story and their unique background and their strengths and even weaknesses that they're bringing to the table in a very authentic way, then that really stands out across many, many applications, because we've seen that a lot of students sometimes get nervous and they over-structure or over-engineer their answer. And therefore, sometimes the real story kind of goes missing.
So my question would be, since Tetr is like a business school, a lot of focus is on entrepreneurship, and students, high school students, much like me, when I was applying, I was like, I don't have any entrepreneurial experience. How is it going to be? So what would be your advice to students who have not done something in that space yet?
Yeah, that's a good question, because a lot of times when we talk to students who are applying to Tetr, they're very confused. They're like, we don't have a venture yet, so then what does that mean for us? So of course, Tetr is not only for people who have had an entrepreneurship journey before they've come to Tetr. It may help them also because we have one particular scholarship that is for students with entrepreneurial background, but there are actually 6 other scholarships which are for things like their extracurricular, an outlier scholarship which could be related to their excellence in dance, sports, any of the other activities. There's also a community scholarship for students who've shown leadership in community initiatives, then transfer scholarship Pathfinder. So clearly, entrepreneurship is not the only thing that we think that is the most important key element of the application. I think the more important thing to look at is that they should definitely be interested in entrepreneurship or exploring it, because when they're here at Tetr, as you all know, they would be building a lot. So they need to have that drive or that passion to explore the entrepreneur in them.
No, but where this question is coming from is because there was an entire essay based on this. Tetr gave a prompt, what is the one entrepreneurial experience that you're part of? So, this question rings in. But yeah.
But it's interesting because you're right, entrepreneurship is about business a lot of times, but being entrepreneurial, honestly, is just about the ability to take initiatives and leading initiatives and making things happen. And I think that could be another way to look at it. For example, you've had your own podcast, which was, an initiative, and it was something that you built on. And whether it was specifically done from an entrepreneurship kind of way, or was it sort of like an interest that you really honed and explored and really made something out of it? It's sort of like the same same personality. So we are looking for people who are great fits, and we're looking for people who, when they're at Tetr, they will make the most of this experience. I remember that in your application, your passion for sustainability, because you also spoke about that, I think, in your interview, really stood out, because that's the other thing. Empathy is one of... Empathy, great communication, and the ability to take initiatives. Any demonstration of that makes us feel like you could be a great fit.
And there are a lot of people that had started some kind of business, or maybe it was so little they said they disregarded it and were like, nah, there's no way they're considering this. But what Tetr cares about, at least from what I understand, is the initiative of wanting to do something and go forward. For example, I remember from my first interview with Pratham, with my parents, and he said, no, I liked your podcast, and my podcast had 170 followers and 10 reels, but he could see, based on the podcast, that I was going forward and wanted to do something entrepreneurial.
Same for me. I didn't have a lot of subscribers or viewers, but he saw the vision. And also, like in my interviewer asked me like, okay, I understand that you've not done anything in entrepreneurship space yet, but how do you plan to take your current projects forward in that direction? Like, do you have a plan in mind? So I remember instantly, I did not, but I made up one plan. I was like, okay, maybe I can collaborate with this, and then I'll have these investors. And it's just about having that mindset, maybe. Yeah.
You still have a few years until your graduation from high school. You still have a lot of time to start building something, creating something, so that you can then talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, start building it now, even from like before applying to Tetr. Like, it's gonna be a really good asset to honestly have. And you can keep building it on, and that experience is actually going to really help you, I feel.
Yeah, maybe also use the resources in Tetr to like build it more.
Yeah.
So that means like grades don't even matter that much as if you, for example, would apply to a like traditional college. It's more like about your personality, also maybe what you did outside of the classroom, or like how important are grades in this whole process?
So grades are not the most important thing. Some people with exceptional grades can sometimes qualify for our SAT scholarship. So there might be an advantage to that. But not having the right grades is not a disadvantage. What other questions for me?
What's the biggest mistake applicants make?
I think it would be, I go back to the answer that I gave initially, which was like a little bit around authenticity. The biggest mistake is, I think, over-engineering your answers and how you show up to the test and to the interview, which means that maybe sometimes spending a lot of time, because there are lots of steps. So a lot of students spend too much time in step one trying to perfect that essay and, kind of like going through drafts over drafts. And therefore, sometimes losing the authenticity and just kind of like bringing in too much information, but it doesn't really tell the story well. So I think those kind of mistakes can be avoided. So that's the other sort of like mistake that some kids make, is that they're a little bit too distracted while they're giving their Tetr trial. The Tetr trial is a very important part as well. A lot of students sometimes have these, for example, when you're giving the Tetr trial, we always recommend students to be in airplane mode so that there are no distractions, because especially in one of those questions where you're answering to the AI and the camera is kind of like looking at you and kind of taking body language cues as well. And if you come across as distracted, it might just flag off as some kind of cheating activity, which may not be true, which is also something that they should avoid.
And another recommendation for the Tetr trial would be in your room, alone, with good connectivity, good microphone, good camera, and focus. No pets in the room too. Some people have been flagged because of a pet going around. So
can you also talk a little bit about the game? Because a lot of people, when they play it, they have no clue what's going on, because they've never given a test like this. So can you just talk a little bit about that as well?
So I can't tell you what the games are and too much into it, because we want everyone to experience them on their own. Also, it's something that when you start engaging with it is when you discover it, and that's when you sort of, that's the real challenge, to be able to do it in that much time. But it is essentially like a game where you're problem solving. The level is intermediate to hard. So it's not the easiest game out there, which also means that when students are not able to do very well, they get nervous right after. And that kind of can affect the rest of the test. But that's also a part of the test, can you maintain your cool? do the best in the game that you can. There's also a problem-solving game where you're supposed to maximize revenue and profits because you're sort of like driving a salesman across the city and everything. So very interesting games that combine business as well as your overall focus and your ability to think quickly. But then eventually, overall, it's a game that just tests how you maintain your composure, even if it doesn't go well, because the rest of the test is fairly sort of easy. Yeah. There is a moderate level IQ, EQ test. There is a creativity test where you're supposed to do some abstract thinking. There's a comprehension test, which tests for your ability to read text in English and understand from it. And of course, the ethical dilemma question, which you answer to the AI, which essentially measures for your, communication ability. Yeah. So yeah, that's the game's kind of like judging you at two different levels. That's an interesting one.
No, but the test is fun. I remember answering Matt's question and the very next second I'm just managing spaceships, whatever. So it was fun.
No, actually about the Tetr trial, I personally get a lot of questions, like more about the framework of it, or like if people can't finish it completely, like what will happen, or is that very bad, or if, for example, their internet crashed, like what should they do?
So in some cases, when the internet crashes, and we know that there has been, and we get those notifications on the back end as well. So we understand when there was, the session terminated because of internet and technical issues. And then they can reach out to the team and we will resend them the link and they can finish the rest of it.
Yeah, as you said, maintaining the composure. For example, I'm sure when you're like running a project or in a business, you're gonna face so much like hardships and objects that's potentially gonna make you feel like I want to give up. Well, like just don't give up, guys. Like just keep it going, and at the end of the day, like just be cool. Everything's gonna be okay, and they're gonna see it, and I think that's what really matters.
So coming back to the applications, there are so many flooding in, so many people are applying to Tetr. So do you really read everything that every person writes? Like, do you read our essays?
Yeah. So every single application that comes to Tetr, there is a team that goes through it. So all of them are read. Of course, the Tetr trial has an AI evaluation report, but the report from the Tetr trial, the application, as well as the interview, comments are all read by a human and evaluated, across some criterias, which are benchmarked, and there's a rubrics for that.
A lot of students, and even I had a question, like, who is the ideal candidate for Tetr? Like, what do you look for in a candidate? Like, this is, if a person shows this tick mark, we're getting in. So indirectly, we'll also get to know how we got in. But yeah, what is the ideal Tetr candidate?
Okay, so for the ideal Tetr candidate, I think the one thing, it may manifest in different ways, but the one thing that's the same across all our students is that they genuinely want to create some kind of an impact in the world. And which was one of the reasons why we started the Young Leaders Forum within Tetr, where our students applied, and we're trying to find more opportunities for them to impact their peer group and also in larger forums talk about their own journeys, because we believe that each Tetr student is actually a leader in the making. So even though you are learning business right now, the ventures that you will eventually create and, in the way that your careers and your ventures will progress, we do believe that each and every person will try to create some impact in some way.
How important is it to speak English fluently?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So it is important to be proficient in English because our delivery is English, and you all know this. I think the reason why a lot of students ask this question to us is because they wonder if they need an IELTS or a TOEFL score to get through to Tetr. But the Tetr trial in itself checks for basic proficiency in English so that people are able to just communicate effectively with one another, because you'll all be working in teams and with each other. So unless you have that, the basic comfort with working in English, it might just be difficult to work together in a team. Yeah. And that's just the amount of English that you need to be able to get into Tetr.
Malvika, since Tetr is a new concept, we're the first batch, and a lot of questions came in, like, is it legit? A lot of people are like, it's a scam. It's not. I'm saying that, but the accreditation, do we get the degree? Even though Tetr is much beyond all of this, a lot of focus is on doing stuff, building stuff, degrees, but it's a college. We are going to be, if not more, but at par with normal universities. So I just wanted to answer that question because a lot of students ask, are we going to get a degree? From where are we going to get a degree? do we actually give exams, the grading system, just like that
A little
aspect.
bit on that. Okay, so as you all know, Tetr works almost like, so of course, in the 4 years that you are with Tetr, you will go to 7 different countries and build 7 different businesses. Now, how we've structured it is there's almost like a 3+1, where 3 years, of course, you're traveling from one base camp to the other base camp. During every week, you have certain how-to workshops. And then you also have like time that has been put aside only for your capstone project, which is the business that you're building. And apart from that, there are business immersions, and then there are cultural immersions. And then there is more stuff, I know, as well. But that's how your week and everything is planned. But overall, in those 3 years, you will be going from base camp to base camp, attending these workshops, and building the businesses. The last year you spend with a partner university at Tetr, and the partner university, which you can check out on our website as well, is where you will get your degree from. Now, in terms of the partnership and the degree, that's how it works, that we've articulated all the aspects of learning through practical aspects and through the workshops in the entire program over the 3 years, which is why it's a very rigorous course also. It's a very demanding program, and therefore the fitment and the readiness to take initiative and going through all of that is very important. There are reflections at the end of each workshop and program, because you need to also figure out whether whatever you've learned, you've been able to use it well that has been helpful. And even if you weren't able to use it, then how could you improve on it? But essentially giving you time to reflect on your learnings from the workshops and the business, and using that as a parameter. No one really fails at Tetr, but you get a lot of feedback and you move from one milestone to the other milestone and forward.
Yeah.
Is ChatGPT, like how much should you use? Like I'm sure that you guys have like policies about ChatGPT. And because a lot of the people are going to be using ChatGPT for these applicants, I think you should give them a general guideline, or like what kind of...
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
I think ChatGPT is great for research. It's definitely great for all of that. But ChatGPT will also, to some extent, give you very generic sort of answers, because it kind of brings in information from across its databases to give you an answer. It may not always be the most authentic, and it may not connect the best.
So a lot of people ask like, okay, what should I expect in the interview? Like, what are the kind of questions they're going to ask me?
So the interviewers are in fact trying to understand you as a person and the thought that you've given to your application at Tetr. And therefore, they will ask you questions around any ideas of entrepreneurship that you have. How are you planning to make most of Tetr? Why Tetr? And when they ask you these questions, they might just go like one level deeper and ask you why and try to understand more. And at that point, I think the depth of thinking around how this aligns with your plans will essentially be what they would be looking for. All right, so it's my turn now. I've been waiting for this. No, but very interested to know about your journeys at Tetr so far. And I'm sure that more than my answers, they're all waiting to hear this from you. So what is the one thing that surprised you the most when you first joined Tetr?
I think that's what also surprised me like a lot, that like, although we were so diverse, like after I say 2 days or 3 days was already like some sort of community, and that it like became a family that fast. That was crazy to see for me. I didn't expect that.
For me, I would say that before I was just a normal student coming, and instantly I became a founder. Like we got to building things so quickly. Like I remember, and like within a week we got a session on meta ads, and the very next day we were like, yeah, start running ads. Like so quickly we're into getting our hands dirty and started building things so quickly. Like it was so surreal for me. I was like, okay, I'm a founder. I have a company to run right now. My company is registered.
Yeah, I was so surprised how quickly we became like adults and gained so much maturity. Like it was within a week, we were like checking emails all day long, having to do things until 12 a.m., sleeping little. But well, it's what it takes. Then you start getting a routine and get more used to everything and more comfortable with everything. But it was like straight out of your comfort zone as soon as you arrive.
I agree with Juan. It's because like just look back 7 months ago, 8 months ago now. Like compare yourself how childish we were, how like, we were so excited for eager and everything. I think there's something called the Dunning-Kruger's effect. So like everybody's so peaking high and everything, and then we slam, boom, everything's bad, you're stinky, you're bad, you're like, like annoying and everything. And at the end, like right now, I'm feeling very in a curve of like actually becoming into the normal. We're actually feeling the realization. We're actually genuinely loving each other, having fun, and I think we're at the stage. So all of you guys are going to experience that. And just be excited for it, honestly. It's going to be fun.
I don't know if you remember this, but Professor Kevin used to say this, that you can airdrop a Tetr student to any part of the world and they will just know, they'll just be fine. They'll know what to do because, it becomes a second nature to operate. Super. Apart from the sleeping schedules, what are some of the other challenges that you faced in so far and overcame?
I think for me, it was like living kind of on my own the first time, then also being in a whole other environment with just new people. Like there was like a lot at once, and I underestimated that a little because like, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to class and have my business, but there's like also laundry, there's cooking, there's things you want to do besides of class, and I think you don't think of that when you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to university, I'm gonna study somewhere else. Like getting used to like a new environment all the time, and then like all the new tasks you have to think of, that was like a lot for me in the beginning. Yeah,
but I feel like that's the most fun part. Like that's the most fun part, and like it really builds you this kind of individualism. I think it's really important, honestly.
What about you? Any like crazy challenge? I know that finding a supplier for you was a challenge in term two, so you had to like fly all the way to Vietnam and get it. Like
okay, we had quite a few challenges that were about to like break our teams apart. Not in the sense of that like we were not like it's not that we were not working together and like it was not working together. It was just how much, how hard it was to find a manufacturer, for example, for our D2C like manufacturer, like finding the sales channel and finding events and like actually getting on time to make sure that we have all the supplies needed before jumping into sales and everything. It was just, there were sometimes, we didn't even have like stock at one point, like right before the day, and we're like, oh my God, we're gonna go to the manufacturer, we're gonna sit down with the guy.
So true, yeah.
And then we're gonna let them like work in front of us, so they get pressured, and then we're gonna get all the things, and then we're gonna come back. That was our mentality. So honestly, I'm so proud of our team for like working all through together to like make sure it works. But apart from this, I actually want to mention about this. So a lot of the people who came here, I think, either had a solo ventures or like team of two. Usually. So they were more like a solo players. But what I really realized from here, us working as a team of 5 to 6, is that you really have to think in a team perspective, like being in a team player, right? So if somebody's challenging you with certain opinions and they're shutting your opinions down, it's not that they actually hate you or like they want to shut your ideas down. It's actually we have the same goal. We want to make this D2C to work together. So we have a common enemy. We're just like trying to figure out whose idea should be working towards that goal. So that was the biggest challenge for me, to change my perspective from the solo player to becoming a team player.
Do you think that there was any aspect of peer-to-peer learning? Like for example, teamwork, collaboration came very easily to you because you had that experience and you had done that before. Whereas for you, it was something new. Did you feel like maybe you learned something from Liliana or other like people like Liliana who were good at it? Do you think that there was an aspect of peer-to-peer learning?
No, I can definitely answer this because, look, I learned so many from my teammates. Like why I appreciate about them so much is because, for example, Joy, I learned how to be more thinking in an objective, more like in a third person's perspective. Ilya, how to deal with money, how to deal with finances, and Jerome, how to handle people. Because he has a background with dealing with people.
Because that's like a foundational shift in the way that you're suddenly perceiving. What about you guys?
Like first semester, we were doing dropshipping. This was my first time building a proper business. And I was really impulsively taking some decisions. Like we had to reach certain targets. Tetr was giving us targets. And I was like, you know what, let's do this. And then my teammate Arstan, he's from Kazakhstan. He's like, Radhika, calm down. That's not how you think. This will not lead to a better position for our business. So think objectively, step back and see, like, are you just taking decisions because you want to go there, or do you like just be more practical about it? So I think right now that is helping me in D2C as well. So I think that's something that I learned from my friends. And not only in terms of business, I have a friend from Moldova. Her name is Nicoletta. So I learned how to make the Moldovan soup. So that was interesting.
Very nice.
Yeah. So that was fun.
I think for me, regarding teamwork, is like learning how many different kinds of work ethics exist. Because I mean, sure, I was playing with 70 people, but we were all from Germany. And there's just like, from the culture, there's some kind of work ethics that you have. Different ways of people being efficient also in their work, and to learn, okay, it might be the right way for me, but for them, this is actually how they work better. And I just have to give them the time to do it that way. That was like also learning for me, yeah.
I learned a lot from Fernando, for example, how to think about problems on an entrepreneurial way. He's like amazing at coming up with great business ideas. So every time I had like kind of an idea, he was like great at refuting them or saying no, because what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So I learned a lot about how to give the ideas another round of thought before actually committing to any of them, and learning a lot about how to approach the business.
What do you find is the role of the how-to workshops, and how have those been for you? I know that you've had some very interesting professors. Any favorite professors or any favorite workshops, by the way, so far? And also, any examples where you learned stuff in the workshop and then how you were able to apply it later in your business? What about that learning?
The whole idea of the workshops is first you have the classes on the morning/afternoon, and then at night you can apply that to our business. And I think all of us have had that experience before, for example, with the ads workshop, with Work Effectively in Teams workshop, in which we learned a lot that were actual problems we were having, which we could later apply. For me, my favorite professor was Bhupesh for now, because of all the brand and marketing he's taught us. And he has really made us see how we position our brands on a different way, and why we build the brand on a different way.
Yeah, I agree to that. Like, it's always directly connected rather to our business, or it's like I'd say basic course or basic workshop, which builds on our skills over the semester. So I think last semester we also had a lot of like basic things, like how to make advertisements in general, or like who's your best customer, or like, these marketing questions. And now it gets a bit more specific, I think, in this semester. And I just love like that the professors are so diverse, also from diverse backgrounds, like that matches the students, and that they're really passionate about what they're doing, because that like gives us also like the engagement and the motivation to like listen and engage with them as well.
Yeah, for me, it would be Professor Edward Rogers, who was the former Chief Knowledge Officer at NASA. You know, sounds fancy and all of that. But when he actually came and taught us, I was like, wow, amazing, because he has that calmness and that humor to him. He loves Bollywood. Like, I never expected him. He would start the classes with Bollywood music. Then he had a lot of cahoots. But his course was how to manage complexities. And I remember we got an opportunity to sit one-on-one with him. I'm like, okay, sign me up. And we had a 15-minute slot with him. And he actually sat one-on-one with each one of us, like with me as well. And then he was like, okay, tell me, what is it that you're doing in your business? And then I remember he was talking a lot about mind maps. I think that really helped me personally in terms of first principle thinking, that when there's a problem, how do you get to the root cause of it? I think to the mind maps and the way he taught us how to manage the complexities, I think that course really, really helped me.
Another thing I would say about the workshops is that it focuses a lot on soft skills. And sometimes people don't give it relevance, but for example, communicating is great, has a great importance. And a great professor we had on communication, I think we would all agree, was Lizzie, who came from US. Flew her from US to here in India, and she taught us how to own a stage. And I think after that, I've gained a lot more awareness about how I behave talking in public, on stage, and improve my communication a lot thanks to her.
I think there was like a lot of like drastic improvement in the way that people delivered some of those speeches right after the whole and it was a public speaking workshop that Lizzie took. You know, also because you're making money, how are you using that? Are you reinvesting it, or are you also spending some of that money? Like, what do you do with that?
So for D2C and Mela, I think our team specifically made about about $1,100 for one day, I think. So there's definitely cash flow. It's just, it's gonna get reinvested into the company very quickly.
Yeah.
That I think it's honestly a good thing. Like you're expanding the businesses and everything is like growing. So what I'm saying is like separate your business expenses and your personal expenses, and you're keeping with the personal finances, you're gonna be okay. But yeah, it was very fun experiences.
I agree to that because like we just have 4 months around for each venture, and I mean in the initial phase of a startup, there's a lot of initial investment. So there is a lot of money you put in before the money that you gain from it really comes out to you and you're not reinvested in the company. So I agree that like most of it we put back into the company to scale it.
It depends on each person too. But I want to shed a light that Tetr are here for help as well.
Yeah.
Like they do give out grants if we need the extra lending help. You know, because like investments really go for a long mile.
Yeah.
And if you really need an initial investment from some investors, they're willing to help you. If you need to get help from the Tetr itself, they're willing to help you too. So
can you talk a little bit about any of you who did internships? And I know that we obviously have the internships over the long break, which is May, June, July. But there are also internships that sometimes students do along with their time at Tetr during the term. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Sure, I can. In the very beginning, Tetr, keeps on rolling out a lot of internship opportunities. And then I saw DIFC there, Dubai International Financial Center. Sounds like a big name. So I just gave in my resume and luckily I got shortlisted. So I went in for the internship. I got a 4-month internship as a marketing intern there. So I got some exemption from classes and then I would go there. And I think it was a very surreal experience for me because I was walking in every day into one of the biggest financial hubs of the world. So that was amazing. I was actually talking to real people working in DIFC alongside taking care of my business and academics. So I think it was a very, very fulfilling and a wonderful experience because I had never done an internship before.
Yeah, and getting an internship is great at filling our resumes that
Yep.
a lot of them when we started were like all empty.
Yeah.
And now we can start packing things up and saying we did things before. And for example, I got the Gydex internship and it was a great experience of 1 week interviewing CXOs at the biggest startup event in Dubai. And that was also an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And also a lot of CXOs come to give talks. So that's also a great networking opportunity for us to ask for internships as well.
Also.
Because now we have normal connections with them,
Very curious to know which of those sort of like the fireside chats at Tetr, when you have these CXOs and founders and VCs, etc., come and talk for a session and engage, which of those stood out in the last semester or this one?
We got a guy, like chief of tourism in Dubai, explaining us how many people were there, how many people traveled each year to the airports, how they manage the logistics. That was really great. And here in India, we also had Anshita from Fix My Curls. And it was great because she helped us nail our elevator pitches and improve how we present ourselves to a stranger and deliver our story more effectively and get them interested in what we are building, what we're doing, and what we're experiencing.
Yeah, for we just had a D2C Founders Connect here. And I met Dhruv Dhawan, who was right now the marketing head of Geo Hotstar. Geo Hotstar, Dhruv Dhawan. So he, because I'm building something in the entertainment field, we're building a card game. So I had a lot of great conversations with him about entertainment industry, how people engage that way. And I remember texting him on LinkedIn and, it's a great connect that we start building with people at that level that we actually aspire to be. So we start having conversations with those kind of people. So I think that really helps with the vision and ideas. That has helped.
I'm guessing also probably like pitch an internship or, an opportunity to work with them for some time at some point. All right, awesome. I think this was very helpful. I do want to close this session with one very important last question, which is your two pieces of advice for students who are applying to Tetr and are going through their admission process right now. Mostly around the admission process because they really want to get through and get the offer. What is it that you think that they can do to improve their chances, and what would you have done? So maybe we could go once around the room and give our advice. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I know a lot of you guys out there are not sending in the applications because you're like, oh, I'm not really enough, or like there's going to be so many competition. just send in the application. You just never know where it's gonna take you. Maybe you can thank me later if you guys do get in Tetr. But yeah, like 7 different businesses from 7 different countries are coming for you. So send it.
So for me, there was a why Tetr question. It's a very crucial question for me because a lot of people can just simply answer saying, I love traveling or I love building businesses. But I think you can go more deep into why Tetr. Like, just be honest with yourself. Why is it that you want to come to Tetr? I remember, like, why don't you just go on the website and read the courses, read the professors, research about them and be like, hey, I really love the research of this professor. If I come to Tetr, maybe I can combine my work with this professor's research. That's why I want to come to Tetr. And I'm not saying don't write traveling. Of course, if that's something that you're really excited about, do write that. But I think be more honest, be more deep and unique as to why you want to come to Tetr. That'll be my first advice. Second would be before the interview, read your application because majority of my interview was based on my application. So I think if you're not very confident about the numbers that you've written in your application, what topics you've talked about, I don't think it'll be good. So I would just suggest thoroughly read your application like a book, reflect, be confident about the numbers, everything, and then go ahead and give the interview.
I would say talk about why you're the perfect fit for Tetr and know why Tetr is the perfect fit for you most of the cases. Because Tetr knows you want to go to Tetr. Like, who doesn't want to go to Tetr if you're applying to Tetr? And talk about why you're the perfect person for Tetr, what you'll bring on the table, what you'll give to the Tetr tribe, and what makes you stand out from everyone else. And for the interview specifically, I would say have a list of questions kind of prepared, not rehearsed by memory, but know they're going to ask you. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Why do you want to go to Tetr? What business are you most passionate about? And as Radhika says, questions about your application. So also know your strengths, know what makes you special, what makes you unique, and have like bullet points in your head about what you're going to talk about to make your application really stand out.
All right, thank you guys. This was awesome. Thank you for spending time with me and sharing your insights and your experiences with our audiences. If you have any more questions for the tribe or for the team, do drop your questions in the comment section. Our teams will answer them. We wish you all the best for the application process, and we do hope that you're able to make it. All the best, and stay tuned for episode 3, which will come next.
Thanks
for
for watching.
watching.
Ciao.
안녕.
Cheers. Chalo, let's go.
Let's go. What?